Hi, I'm Melinda Williams, and this is The Williams Way. We're lost. It's hopeless. We're doomed. These lines are repeated several times in one of my favorite cast skits. The cast is a creative drama ministry team here at Williams Baptist University. The skit is called 2-Minute Warning, and it's about the Israelites' journey through the desert. Lines go to the effect that the Israelites saw miracles and they saw God work, but did they remember that? In the skit, God parts the Red Sea for the Israelites to walk on dry land, but they complain about the mud. God provides them with food and drink from heaven, but the water's not cold enough and the food is not the right kind. And in the end, when they get to the promised land, when God ushers the Israelites into the promised land, there are giants in the land and they will squash us and eat us. So God provided them with a lot, and God had given them a lot, but they complained the whole way. Basically, the Israelites had forgotten what God had given them. They complained to the point that they thought they would live better as slaves in Egypt, or if God was going to let them die as slaves in Egypt in their own home instead of in the desert. They had what one theologian described as spiritual amnesia. Now, we look at them and we think, how could they see God work and not believe? How could they see all those things and still complain and whine? Look at what God had brought them through. Why would they not believe that God would protect them? That's interesting. We would never do that. Debbie McDaniel, in her book Desert Lessons, lists 5 things that we need to learn from the Israelites. Number 1, the way to the promised land is not easy, but it's worth it. When I was in Sunday school class, I distinctly remember a color sheet that we had to color where 2 Israelites were holding 1 grape. Pretty sure that the fruit might not have been that big, but the land God had promised the Israelites was described as a land flowing with milk and honey. And it was theirs, all theirs. But they were afraid of the giants in the land. And then add that to the fact that it took them 40 years to get there. So it was a very difficult journey. But they only saw what was in front of them. God saw the complete picture. He knew how it would end, but the Israelites didn't accept God's vision. Number 2, God will make a way when there doesn't seem to be a way. Sometimes we think what we want, what we pray for, what we desire will never come true. It's just not possible. Sarah, from the Old Testament, thought the same thing. She thought that her and Abraham would never have children. They wanted them, they desired them, they prayed for them. But Sarah and Abraham grew very old, and Sarah grew very tired and impatient of waiting on God. So she took matters into her own hands. Her decision set up the biggest sibling rivalry in history and caused nations to be in war and in strife for generations to come. So Sarah's decision to not wait on God not only affected her and her family, but affected millions and millions of people. The New Testament tells us that all things are possible with God. Number 3, God will lead us day and night. We are told God will never leave us or forsake us. It doesn't matter where we go. The psalmist tells us it can be at the highest mountain or the deepest ocean, and God knows where we are. God is always there, and He usually was there before we got there. Number 4, God fights on behalf of His people. Exodus 14:14 says these very words. Moses spoke those words to the Israelites when they started whining and complaining. Why don't you leave us alone and let us just be servants to the Egyptians? Why don't you just leave us here to die as servants than to die in the desert? Moses looked at them and spoke those words. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. Number 5, God provides in miraculous ways. Look at some of the things the Israelites witnessed. Parting of the sea, food from heaven, clouds and a fire to direct them, a burning bush. I heard a pastor say one time that God brings us through things in such miraculous ways that there can be no mistake that it was God's power and His intervention that saved us. Now, let's be honest. We can understand the Israelites and maybe identify with them. Circumstances leave us worried and scared. We don't know what's going to happen or how things are going to turn out. We begin to complain and whine and concentrate on what we don't have and how bad our life is. The cure for our spiritual amnesia is the same cure that it was for the Israelites: to remember. Remember what God has done for us. Remember the things He has brought us out of, the prayers He has answered, the miracles that we have seen. And then we put Philippians 2:14 through 16 in practice. Do all things without complaining and disputing, that you may become blameless and harmless, children of God without fault in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast to the word of life, so that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain or labored in vain. So, as we were told as children in Sunday school, we need to let our light shine and don't let Satan blow it out, so that it may shine on a lost, hopeless, and doomed situation. Stay safe, stay healthy, and shine on.